Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. Welcome to the JPRC week, which started on the 10th, that was yesterday. And today, as usual, we're continuing with our theme, which comes from Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17. And our theme is based on doing good while seeking peace and justice. So JPRC stands for Justice, Peace, Reconciliation and Creation. And along with the theme verse of Isaiah 1:17, we want to see how we can do good and give peace and justice to the most vulnerable group in our society. Today we are focusing on a group that is usually forgotten, and we are focusing on persons with disability. With me here, I have a very able panel, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Hello viewers, and praise the Lord. My name is Susan Thuku, the ministry coordinator.
Hello my viewer, my name is James Singaru, the patron, Deaf Ministry, Kariobangi South, PCA.
Hello viewer, I'm Jane Washira, I'm the chair, PCA Kariobangi South, Deaf Ministry.
Greetings everyone, my name is Wangeshi Gadhitu. I am a member of JPRC, and yes, it's we are glad to have you, and we hope you learn something from this. Thank you.
So over to you, Geshi, who is my co-host for the first question.
So as Agnes has mentioned, to sensitize the church and the congregation on our theme of doing good, we thought it best to ask the panel a number of questions regarding to persons with disabilities. And so the first question that we had was, in your opinion, what are the common disadvantages that persons with disabilities face? And what do you have to say about that?
Thank you. One, I want to really commend the JPRC for such a forum to try and unearth and see what support we can give to people with disability as a group that is very much vulnerable to injustices. And being a patron of the Deaf Ministry in PCA Kariobangi South, there are things that probably I've personally observed, and I will not mind sharing with each other so that we can see how we can help these people, not face injustices. Now, one of the areas that I find is that there exists a kind of a gap between the regular persons and the people with disability. Anytime you come across a person living with disability, it could be a person who is hearing impaired, that is a deaf person. It could be someone who is visually impaired, can't be able to see. There's a kind of a gap that kind of exists because there is no communication. There's a definition of communication that talks about communication as creating commonness. And so for that very fact that you're not able to create commonness, you kind of try to distance yourself from this particular person. So that this person needs communication, needs some help, you find that the regular person stays away or actually appears to be away. And I think this is an area that you need to be very conscious about, so that anytime you interact with a person with a disability, you do not walk away from that particular person. You see what kind of support you can give. It could be psychosocial support. It could be some kind of guidance. It could be that this person has a challenge that would want to share with you in the kind of the language that this person may understands most. And maybe also, in that area, we can endeavor to create communication. If you're there, endeavor to learn the sign language, so that if you see, for instance, two people communicating in sign language, you can understand what they're saying. And I'm sure if we endeavor to learn the language, then you realize that we shall create a commonness, and there'll be communication between the person with disability and the regular person. Another area that I find that needs our attention is the opportunities that you avail to the people with disabilities as far as careers are concerned. You know that despite the fact that someone could be hearing impaired, cannot hear, or cannot see, the person has needs that needs to be taken care of. The person has basic needs and many other needs just like you and I have. And how do they meet these needs? For them to meet these needs, they need resources. Yet we do not give them an opportunity for them to earn these resources. The law provides that 5% of the workforce must be people with disabilities. But let's do a check. How many times have we offered those opportunities? You, my viewer, there are times you have employed a domestic worker at home. When did you ever engage a person with a disability? Do we ever think of where do they get the resources? Even when we come to the investments that we have, even at the church level, talk about our schools, talk about anywhere where we employ people, do we engage people with disability? The law says 5% of the people working there should be people with disability. So I think this is another area that you need to look at, to check on, so that we do not bring injustice to the people with disability. Let's give them opportunities because they have needs to meet. And despite the fact that they have some form of, disability, they can still be able to work, earn money, and be able to move with life. Otherwise, those are two areas that I think are important for us to think about. Thank you.
For you, Jane, as a person with disability, what are some of the common injustices you've faced and how have you dealt with them and kept a positive attitude?
Thank you so much. For me, I'm a person who is living with this skin disability. As you know, the skin is the largest organ in the body. And everybody will see that you have a disability, even from afar. I suffer from vitiligo. Vitiligo is just as the skin is not performing its function to produce color for my body. And so this is something that you're not born with. It's something that occurs in the course of your living. And once people notice that you're having white patches on your skin, they tend to fear you. So what they do is stigmatize you. They don't want to touch you or associate with you. They think that you are contagious. And so people will run away from you or they'll talk behind your back. So most of the problem that I suffer from is stigma.
So how can we do good to somebody like you? Maybe you can tell us some of the things that we should do or not do.
What we should do is we should create awareness. And what this forum is helping me to do is create awareness to the people that this problem is not contagious, and so they should not fear associating with people who are having the same problem that I'm having. Like we are also 5% of the population. So you'll come across several people who are having those white patches. And actually on 25th of June, we celebrated the World Vitiligo Awareness Day. If someone would Google vitiligo, they would be able to know what is vitiligo. And they would see that we are actually many who are suffering from vitiligo. 5% is not a small population. And it helps people to know that we are not contagious. We have everything else like everybody else. And we can perform our duties very well. So they should not fear associating with us. And they should stop stigmatizing us.
Thank you so much. Susan, can you give us your opinion on what are the common injustices that people with disabilities face, especially in light with the deaf?
So thank you for that question. And first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank PCA Kariobangi South that has really stuck to our motto that you and I together to heaven. That even as PCA Kariobangi South plans about people without disabilities, they are also very concerned about persons with disability, and they have ensured that we have accessibility. Like if you want to access our place of worship, we have ramps where we can use to get to the church and other places. If you want to go to the vestry, there is also a lamp where a wheelchair can move freely. We also have toilets that have specifically been made for persons with disability, plus many other things. So when it comes to the deaf people, they have ensured that we have enough interpreters to take care of our deaf people in church and even outside the church and even in their daily activities, even when outside the church. It has also provided guides who can assist even other disabilities in our church. So even as we speak about injustices, we still want to appreciate the good work that PCA Kariobangi South continue to do. So I would like to say that disability is very expensive. If you maybe get a child with disability, you don't take that child to a neighboring school like every other child. You have to look for a school that is very far away from home. So like the deaf schools that we have around here are very far. So it's very expensive. So as people who do not have disabilities, we may not know sign language, we may not know Braille, we may not know many things, but we can use our resources to be a blessing to persons with disabilities. We can use our resources to help those people who are in need, and there's a lot that each one of us can do. And maybe we would also want to appeal to our drivers. When you're driving the roads, we'd like you to know when you get to a zebra crossing, it is very important to know that even if you keep hooting, it is not everybody who hears. Deaf people do not hear. So kindly, when you get to a zebra crossing, kindly let the persons with disability pass. Maybe someone is in a wheelchair and the person may not see, or even a deaf person. Please be patient enough. We actually always appeal for extreme patience when you're dealing with persons with disability. That really it's not everybody who hears, it is not everybody who sees. So we really need to be mindful and sensitive about other people's needs. The deaf people have several challenges. But a few things that we need to know about the deaf is when a deaf person is communicating with another deaf person, kindly do not walk in between. If you must pass in between a deaf person and that deaf person, you need to excuse yourself and then they will allow you to pass. If you have to pass in between an interpreter and a deaf person, it would be wrong because you would be interfering with their conversation. So if you must pass in between, kindly excuse yourself or pass behind them, and then their conversation will go on without any interruption. If you need to call a deaf person, maybe when you need to call a hearing person, you can make voices and you can say like you call anything and that person will turn. But when you are talking to a deaf person, even if you keep speaking, even if you pick a microphone, this person will not hear. So kindly avoid throwing objects to a deaf person like it is normally done. They really don't feel so good when we throw objects, we throw stones, we throw whatever we are holding, just to get the attraction of a deaf person. If you must call a deaf person to your attention, kindly take your time, just run, tap the shoulder of a deaf person, and yes, it's gonna be well with you. So there's a lot we can do for the deaf. We can pay for their school fees. Most of them are very poor, and actually disability and poverty are intertwined, because once you get a child with disability, like I've explained, you can't take them to the nearest school. You may not even get churches that are providing the services that they need. So whatever small thing that you need for that person with disability, you must use money. If maybe you have a child maybe with cerebral palsy, you must get a house help to be helping you around, or you must resign from your place of work to take care of your child. And while other people are working and getting money, you are there taking care of your child, and it can really get very expensive on your side. So we have a responsibility when we are called upon to support persons with disability. Let us do it with a lot of gladness. Let us do it with an appreciation that God has given us an opportunity to hear. He's given us an opportunity to speak. He's given us an opportunity to walk and do many other things and even see without charging us a single coin. And so because He has entrusted us with so much, He has also entrusted us to support He also expects a lot from us to support His people for His own glory.
Thank you. And as we conclude, I'd like to give each of my panelists 30 seconds to just tell us, how can you create peace between the community and persons living with persons with disability. We'll start with you, Jane.
On my side, I think that we should understand them. Like I said, when we create awareness, people will not fear us. And so we shall be able to live together. We shall be able to live as a community and join hands even as we do the community service.
Wow. So seek to understand and be patient with them. Okay.
Yeah. I think that to create peace between the people with disability and the community, we need to demystify this whole concept of people with disability. And I think, as my colleague has said, through creating awareness, that would be one. We should also encourage people to learn the language of communication that the people with disability use. If it's about blind people, it doesn't make any harm to learn how to read through Braille. If it's about the deaf, you can learn sign language. So in that case, the community and the people with disability are one and the same. Thank you.
Susan, I'd like to put a twist to yours. What should I call a person with disability? There are common things like calling somebody kiwete. Is that right? How do we live in peace with people with disability?
So that's a very good question. We've always pleaded with people to see the person first before the disability. So just see that person first, then let the disability come later. And that is why we call them persons with disability. So don't keep saying like what that person cannot do. See the ability in that person. And maybe a bit etiquette when you're dealing with persons with disability. If you must speak to a person on a wheelchair, kindly don't give orders from above. Just come down to the level of that person, speak to that person from the same level, and then you can understand one another. If you meet a person with visual impairment on the road, kindly introduce yourself, because this person cannot see you and may not identify you. Kindly introduce yourself, then inquire what help that person would want. Please let us stop making guesses. Like we've had cases where you see a person with visual impairment, someone opts to help her, cross her to the other side, then you keep on crossing and crossing and crossing, and the day will end up that person going round the roundabout because of people who are willing to help her, and they are not asking that person where they are going, and they all seems to be in a hurry, and they end up taking that person to the wrong place. So kindly introduce yourself and ask what kind of help that person with disability would want. We always tell people that persons with disability are not very demanding. They only need two things: opportunity and empowerment. Kindly give us the opportunity to do things, and kindly empower us. And yes, we can do those things that you people without disability can do if you give us the opportunity and if you give us empowerment. Thank you.
Wow, what a way to conclude. And as the church, we are to show the light to the rest of the world. And so let's take what we've been given clearly and be the ones to show our community the way. Let us take persons with disabilities as our brothers and sisters. Let us love them, because the community will emulate what the church is doing. So over to you, community and the church. Let's do good to all while seeking peace and justice. Thank you. Asante Rhoda kwa kutuungana na sisi. Thank you for joining us. And as a parent of a child with disability, unaweza tuelezea ni changamoto zipi ambazo unapitia kama mzazi wa mtoto mlemavu, na vile ungependa kuwapa mawaidha wazazi wenye watoto walemavu?
Okay. Asante sana. Sisi kama wazazi wa watoto walemavu tunapitia changamoto nyingi. Sababu hao watoto sisi ndio akili zao. Sisi ndio tunawafikiria. Hakuna vile wengine wanakuambia nataka ama example kama ako na njaa, anakuambia ako na njaa. Ni vile unaona akibehave, hivyo ndio unajua ako na njaa. Kwa hivyo ni lazima ujue wakati wake wa kula, umefika, wakati wake wa kwenda kama ni haja anataka, we ndiye unajua ni wakati gani anatakiwa aende haja. Kama ni usafi wake, we ndiye unajua ni mchafu anatakiwa aoge. Kama ni wakati wake wa kwenda kulala, we ndiye unatakiwa ujue ni wakati gani ataenda kulala. Kwa hivyo tunakuwa na changamoto. Ni lazima ukue very alert kwa mtoto kama huyo, sababu kama hutakuwa hivyo, kuna mambo ingine haitaenda sawa. Especially sasa kama huyo wangu, na kuna wakati atakusubua. Ni lazima uwe always ready kusumbuliwa, sababu niseme kama huyu wangu, munaona vile anafanya kwa kanisa. Saa zingine namwambia, naona especially this day tumekuwa na kanisa inachukua muda mrefu. Naona ni lazima aende show, naenda kumshukua kwa pale alikuwa ameketi, hataki kwenda na najua ni lazima, ako na haja, lakini anataka kuchukua kila mtu mwingine, sio mama yake. Sasa naona hiyo ni changamoto, sababu watu wanaweza ona kama ni kitu, kama ni kusubuana, tunasubuana, na nasitaki watu waone. Sasa inakuwa changamoto sana. Ile ingine ni vile watu wanashukua walemavu. Ni kama watu wako na ugonjwa yenye inaweza abukizano. Unaona wengine wanatoroka, wakiona watoto kama hao wanatoroka. Badala ya kujua ni shida gani huyu mtoto ama mtu ako nayo. Unaona mtu anapiga bio, anatoroka. Sasa unaashwa kama umeshangaa. Unashindwa sasa ni nini baya? Labda huyo mtu anataka kukusalimia, anataka tu upendo, lakini we umetoroka. Alafu ingine ni vile wanaangalia watoto, unaona wanawaangalia tu, ni kama hawaelewi. Mimi ningeuliza, hiyo kuangaliwa sana inafanya mtu hata yeye ajiulize maswali. Saa huyu mtu ananiangalia ni nini? Na hawakuangi na shida. By the way, watu wanatakiwa, kama unaona niko na shida, nisaidie. Na tunataka kukua, kushanganyika na watu wale wengine. Sasa hiyo inakuwa changamoto. Kuwapenda, we need love. Wanapenda huyo upendo, na sana na ndio unaona kama huyo wangu anakibilia watu, na ni kama sababu she doesn't concentrate. Unaona saa zingine anaona mtu mmoja, akiona mtu mmoja kidogo anaona mwingine, anamkibilia. Sasa ni kama anakuwa confused. Ni nani natakiwa anishike mkono, na ni nani nitaanza na yeye, hajui. Tuseme kama huyo mtu ako na shida ya kwenda show, nilikuwa naongea juu yake. Hao watoto hawakuagi speed. Tuseme sasa amepresiwa, anataka kwenda show. Huyo mtoto akienda kwa show, anashindwa ni nini ataanza nayo. Ni kutoa nguo, ni kuenda show, ama ni nini? Sasa huyo mtoto unaweza mshukuria vibaya, na sio kupenda kwake. Ni pare nini ujuaji wake umefika. Sasa unaona mtoto kama huyu atajiendea, na wewe utamshukuria vibaya. Watu especially tuseme sio mtu kama mimi, si mama yake ama mzazi wake ako pamoja naye, ni mfanyikazi ama mtu mwingine, anaweza mshukulia vibaya, labda hata amshape, ama hiyo haiendagi vizuri. Wanatakiwa watu wote wanachukua hao watoto na pesi yao vile wanaenda. Some slow learners, kufanya kitu anachukua muda mrefu.
So Rhoda, vile umetuelezea ni muhimu sana, na kama mzazi umesema kuhusu upendo. Jambo la mwisho labda ungependa kutuelezea kuhusu vile wale watoto talanta zao, vile unawatreat kama kwa community. Vile unaweza elezekea community. Unajua vile una treat mtoto wako, ndivyo community itamchukulia huyo mtoto. Kwa mambo ya kumchukulia yule mtoto mlemavu, ni jambo gani la mwisho ungependa kuelezea kuhusu kutreat wale watoto walemavu?
Ningependa community wawe wanajua kama kuna mtoto ako na ulemavu mahali, washukue huyo mtoto ama mtu kama vile unaweza jichukua, kama vile wewe ungependa kushukuliwa kama ungekuwa huyo mwenye ako na hiyo shida. Kama kuna watoto wengine unaona sababu ya hiyo disability hata kujiendea show wanajiendea. Unaona wengine wakienda mahali kama hapo, unaona anashukulia kama ni kupenda, wanapenda nyumba yao labda inuke ikue namna ile iko. Hakuna mtu angependa hivyo. Kwa hivyo kama community mimi ningewauliza kama kuna kile unaweza saidia mtu kama huyo, labda ako na upungufu wa fedha, unaweza msaidia. Sasa hapo unasaidia na mtu anaweza shukuru, lakini kumblame mimi sioni ikiwa faida. Especially nasemanga wale watu wanafunga watoto wao na minyororo. Tumeona cases kama hizo, si kupenda kwao, sababu huyo mzazi ama mtu ni lazima aende mtoto wake ama chakula. Hakuna mtu anaweza bila chakula, na kama hana mtu wa kumsaidia kwa nyumba, ni lazima hafanyangi hivyo sababu anashukia huyo mtoto, ni sababu hana namna na ni lazima atafute. Kwa hivyo ningependa community kama ni serikali iwe inasaidia watu kama hao, sababu watu wanapitia changamoto. Imagine wakati kama huu iko namna vile iko, mtu mwenye na mtoto mlemavu anafanya nini?
Asante kwa hiyo. Treat others vile ungependa pia wewe utritiwe. Hata unajiimagine kama ungekuwa mlemavu, ungependa kutritiwa vipi? Asante sana kwa hiyo. Asante.